Topic is classical European and African poetry, like trying to compare um the different types of and different eras of poetry evolution, or if I use that word. But now the thing is that major like the subtopics we've treated them: definition of poetry, elements, identify characteristics, all these forms of poetry. We have treated most of it. So we're just going to do a quick run, and then because I said last week we're going to look into Mother in the Cathedral. I don't know how many of you have read that book, or how many of you have started reading your recommended text, not just waiting for the class. You understand why I picked the last time I sent through the coordinator. I dropped some screenshots of the Othello, because you guys said people don't understand the language, and I don't know how helpful that screenshot was, because I've not yet gotten feedback. If I've gotten feedback now, I would also know how I can also be of help to help you guys break down the books for people to understand it properly. So we're just going to be doing a quick run, and then we'll move into the plot for Murder in the Cathedral. If anyone has read the book, you will also be like giving us some hints about, or telling us some of the things too you've read or you understood from the book. All right. So this poetry, we've done poetry. We know what poetry is all about, and the elements of poetry: rhyme, meter, imagery, diction, tune. The function def is to entertain, to teach, to inspire, and criticize society. Practically, that's just what most literary forms are just all about. So now the overview of classical poetry is the time frame. When we talk about classical poetry, I know we've talked about something of sort, be that it started from ancient Greece and Rome, and the language is Greek and Latin. And the key figures here, or I'll use the word key poets of this era, we have Homer, we have Virgil, we have Ovid, we have Sappho, and there's also Plato too. So these are just the people who significantly were a part of this classical poetry, who wrote, who um had something to write, who wrote something in that era. Okay. So now the characteristics of classical poetry: we have structured meter. That is that's to say that structured, when you hear something is structured, that's it's following a particular pattern. So that's one of the characteristics of classical poetry. All of them had a particular rule of writing, particular rule to write rather. And then we have that it was epic and lyrical. It had this epic and lyrical form, in the sense that it was kind of historical. You understand? So the themes of classical poetry is heroism, faith, gods, and morality. So we have an excerpt from Virgil's um, poem, Arms, Arms and the Man I Sing, brief analysis of epic style. I know this book will not be common to you guys, this Arms and the Man. So it's just part of what he wrote. This is just an excerpt from a poem of his, and we can see that the poem is structured, it has a theme, and it um also one of the theme, it's about cultural values. So an overview of, now moving on to European poetry, the time frame. So this covers, when you hear anything about European poetry, this covers the medieval to the modern era. So the medieval era, the time of the um What would I put it? The middle age, that middle age era after the after we had what they call these people, rebels, people who let's say a breaking out from the Romans and all of those ones, the people who rebelled against them. So what happened in between this period now? So we had people who significantly wrote in about those times. We had the regions, it covered England, France, and Germany. So the movement is Romanticism, Modernism, and Renaissance. So key poets of this era, we have Shakespeare, we have Dante, Reina Maria, real.
Sorry, excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Please, your screen is not clear.
What did you say?
The screen is not clear.
Oh, never mind.
Okay,
Is
it's
it
better
clearer
now.
now?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. So the theme in this era has to do with nature, emotion, even individuality and social issues. So practically what people wrote about, people like Shakespeare, what they wrote more, one of whose what poems, it's about there's a poem on I think a flower called daffodils. So they more wrote more on nature, the emotion, individuality, and the social issues of that era. Most of that the poems or the poem, not most of the poems in that era were having all these themes. Most of them had all these themes. This was what it was practically centered on. This was like the whole idea most of them were trying to pass across through their writings. Now, example is the Shakespearean sonnet. We know that one of the characteristics of a sonnet is 14 lines and the iambic pentameter. That's the reading scheme. All right. Now, the common themes in the Shakespearean sonnet is love, is time, and beauty. Okay. So now we go on to overview of African poetry. We know that characteristics of African poetry, how African poetry started was in this oral form before it moved into Western to its written form. So firstly, it was the traditions, our culture, our style, or our way of life were first of all sung. You understand? It was oral, and most of it, all this oud and the rest, they were in kind of like singing them before. When westernization and all of that stuff came about, we could they could now write about these things. So now it moved to pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial eras. That is how African poetry has evolved so far. From the pre-colonial, that's before the colonial rule. Now we have during the colonial rule and after the colonial rule. You understand? So um another characteristics of African poetry is the use of native languages and their translation. Definitely African. One of our uniqueness is our language. So whenever we're writing before the coming of English, people know how to read and write in English. We could just speak in our native tongue. So all of these things, this was one of the characteristics of African poetry. Now, the oral performance, we have reading, repetition, call and response. We have community and ancestral themes, and the issues that were addressed with this using poetry were the colonialism, that's the whole colonial experience. Just like the former slide, we said pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial eras. So these were the issues that were being talked about or treated by all these notable by some notable poets in the African society. Now, key poets are samples. We have Sango, we have Soyinka, we have Okot, P. Bitek, we have Osondari. So a sample excerpt is from the Lawonu, Song of Lawonu. So we have this is a comparative table of the various features, comparative rather, the various features like the classical, European, and African. So now in terms of language, the classical, the language that was being used was either Greek or Latin. For the European is English or French, and the African is the indigenous language or the colonial, when the colonial people began to teach us their using their own language. So the form we have for the classical we have epic and lyric. For the European we have sonnet or free verse. Free verse in the sense that there's no particular structure or pattern that was followed. All right. So this free verse now falls under modern era. Then we have for the African, we have oral, we have chants, we have written forms of poetry. Now for the theme, the classical era, the theme was like myth or faith. Myth in the sense that what people believed, their belief in that particular time, what they actually believed in was what they wrote, and then the faith of the times, right? Because they most spoke mostly of the faith of the gods and all of that stuff. So the European team, we have team of love and nature, and for the African team, we have identity and struggle. The technique of writing in the classical era was structured, while the technique of writing in European era it varied because the European this European um era now is divided into two, from the Medieval to the modern. So there was a time where it was structured, and then it's that structured way of writing gave way for free verses. That's no more being structured, just expressing yourself how you can, but making sure that you still follow the whole idea of poetry, that lyrics and all of that stuff, making sure that it has reading, there was rhyme and all, but there was no specific how will I put it? Your the number of lines must be so so and so. Your standard like this. Your rhyme scheme must follow this particular pattern and the rest. So it varied. It was structured or in free verse form. And for the African technique, we know is reading and oral form. So that's just it. And this slide is just summary how poetry reflects culture and time, and the classical form is foundation, structure. The European era was innovation and formality, and the African is oral, cultural, and political relevance. So, any question? Any question for now? Please use your mic so that I'll know that you all are following or have been following the class.
I'm not hearing you very well. It's like
I
things
can't hear
very
you.
clear. I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you like things not clear. You be
If you're
talking.
saying something, please, can you be audible? I can't hear you.
I said that I'm not hearing you
It's still low. I can't hear you. Or is it the network?
Maybe it's not because I'm shouting, but yeah, I cannot hear you very clearly.
But that means you guys have not been hearing me clearly since I've been talking. Hello?
We can hear you, ma.
I can hear you, ma.
Okay. I don't know. The person that was trying to talk that time, I think I picked something like I can't hear you or something. So if you all, the ones that responded, can hear any question, so we can talk about the book. Any question from anybody? I'm not getting feedback. No feedback. Can you go see this thing that I'm looking at?
Yes, ma.
Yes,
People are seeing it. Okay. So since there was no um what they call it, no question. So we're going to be talking about this book now, Mother in the Cathedral. And the book is by T.S. Eliot. Okay, and it was published in 1935. All right. So it's just a play that's about the assassination of Archbishop Thompson Becket in Canterbury Cathedral. So now this is just a plot summary. First of all, before we proceed, has anybody read the book or maybe gone through the summary before now? Has anyone gone through the book
Yes, I've read the book.
and you understand it?
Yes, since it's not too well, it's not an African book, so but at least I grabbed one or two things about his death. I
Okay.
left France to, so I have an idea, but that
Okay.
was long. I read the book.
Any other person? Okay. Since I'm not hearing any, let me just, I'll be reading the summary just the way I got it. All right. And I hope you all follow and maybe it helps you. Maybe through this summary plus summary, you can maybe go back and when you pick the book, you might have an understanding more when you read. So according to other things I got, the book actually started with a group of women singing about what was going to befall the priest or something. So when you come across anything and they talk about, you see anything, maybe you come across a question and they talk about the chorus because there's something about chorus and the rest of the book. So it's just them singing, using the song now to say what is about
See,
to befall the priest that be about to happen. You understand? So now the action occurs between 2nd and 29th of December in 1170. So chronicling the days leading up to the martyrdom of Thomas Becket, following his absence of 7 years in France. Becket's internal struggle is a central focus of the play. And okay, the book is divided into two parts. The part one takes place in the Archbishop Thomas Becker's Hall on the 2nd of December 1170. The play begins with a chorus, just like I said, singing, a chorus singing, foreshadowing the forthcoming violence. I hope you are taking note of this word, foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is different from flashback. When you hear flashback, flashback is someone trying to remember an event that happened in the past. Foreshadowing now is you talking about something that is going to happen in the future. So the play begins with a chorus singing, foreshadowing the coming violence. Now, the chorus is a key part of the drama, with his voice changing and developing during the play, offering comments about the action and providing a link between the audience and the characters and action, as in Greek drama. Now, there are three priests that are present and they reflect on the absence of Becket and the rise of the temporal power. So there was a discussion between three priests. This priest now, they were talking about how this man has gone on, would they call it exile or something, or he was just absent. Nobody heard from him again for 7 years. And while he was away, there's something that was happening. There was an, like call it a revolution happening. The Roman Empire was about to be overthrown. The rebels were already agitating. They didn't want to hear. That was the violence these people now were singing about. So that was the concern of the three priests. Then later, as they were talking, a herald announces Becca's arrival, that he just showed up. Now Beckett is immediately reflective about his coming martyrdom, which he embraces and which is understood to be a sign of his own selfishness, his fatal weakness. The tempters arrive, three of whom parallel the temptations of Christ. So there are three people here also. They call them the tempters. So this book was trying to, in a way, connote what how Jesus was tempted. So that's why they call them three tempters, and they are trying to compare it, the way they are trying to tempt him, trying to compare it to the temptation of Jesus Christ. So now the first tempter offers the prospect of physical safety. So they were trying to tell, the first person was trying to tell him, now this an excerpt that says, take a friend's advice, live well alone, or your goose may be cooked and be eaten to the bone. So he came and told the priest that he should leave, since everybody knew that, because I think this man, this Thomas Becket, was like part of the people that he was not standing for what the rebels were about to do. So because of that, they planned on killing him. It was well known that they were going to kill him. Even him, he knew that he was going to be killed and he accepted it that way. So these people now, they came to tell him that, why don't you go? Why don't you just leave this place, since it's very obvious that you are going to die or they are going to kill you. And now another one, the second one now comes and he offers power, he offers riches and fame in the seven king. So they're like, okay, since you do not want to go for this government, why don't you, like, since you don't want to like run, why don't you just subject yourself to the next king that is coming? So now he said, to set down the great, protect the poor beneath the throne of God, can man do more? So they tried to tell him, all right, just like when the devil came to Jesus, we know all those stories, said, bow down, and the man refused. Now, the third tempter suggests a coalition with the barons and a chance to resist the king. So he said, for us, church favor will be an advantage, blessing of the Pope, powerful protection in the fight for liberty. You, my Lord, in being with us will fight a good stroke. And now the fourth tempter urges him to seek the glory of martyrdom. So since the first one suggested he should run, he refused. The second one said, oh yeah, accept the next king, he refused. Then like, okay, what else will you do? The third one now said, oh yeah, join forces with all these people. He said no. The final person that says, since you do not want to, okay, now you can sacrifice yourself. Now he said the glory of martyrdom, just be killed for your own cause. You understand? He said, you hold the keys of heaven and hell, power to bind and loose. Bind, Thomas, bind. King and bishop under your heel. King, emperor, king, baron, and king. So this one was like, all right, since you do not want to accept what the other three people have told you, since you can just like accept to die and you'll be celebrated for the cause you stood by. You understand? People will know that this was what you died for. Now, Beckett's response to all of the tempters are specifically addresses the immoral suggestions of the fourth tempter at the end of the act. So now what the fourth tempter said later was, now it's my way clear. Now is the meaning plain. Temptation shall not come in this kind again. The last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right deed for the wrong reason. This still suggesting his martyrdom, that is him accepting to be killed. Now, the interlude of the play is a sermon given by Beckett on Christmas morning in 1170. It is about the strange contradiction that Christmas is a day both of mourning and rejoicing, which Christians also do for martyrs. He announces at the end of his sermon, it is possible that in a short time you may have yet another matter. We see in the sermon something of Becker's ultimate peace of mind as he elects not to seek sainthood, but to accept his death as inevitable and part of a better whole. Now, the part 2 of the play takes place in the Archbishop Hall in the cathedral on the 29th of December 1170. 4 knights arrived with urgent business from the king. These knights had heard that the king speak of his frustration with Becket and had interpreted this as an order to kill Becket. They accuse him of betrayal and he claims to be loyal. He tells them to accuse him in public and they make to attack him, but priests intervene. The priest insists that he leave and protect himself, but he refuses. The knights leave and Becket again says he is ready to die. The chorus sings that they knew this conflict was coming, that it had long been in the fabric of their lives, both temporal and spiritual. The chorus again reflects on the coming devastation. Thomas is taken to the cathedral where the knights break in and kill him. Now the chorus for the last, because they told you that when the book started, I told you that the chorus is a significant part of this play. So each time they will sing about every act. So now the chorus laments and says, clear the air, clear the sky, and the land is foul, the water is foul, our beasts and ourselves defiled with blood. So at the end of the play, the knights address the audience to defend their actions, while the rest of the play is in the verse. Their speeches of justification are in strikingly contemporary prose. So now this book, if people have been following Murder in the Cathedral, because we know then the seat of power in the ancient times was the king. So, and then the king and the church, that's one of the church actually. So, since this archbishop was refusing to pledge his allegiance to the king per se, the new king, they decided to kill him, and then they killed him in the church. This man, he already knew what his fate was going to be, and then he accepted it because it's, when they tell you it's either you bow or you die, he was not willing to bow, and then he accepted the order, which was to die. So I don't know if maybe this has given you people an idea of what the book is about. So on your own, if you go to read about the book, now you know that you know what the writer was trying to pass across with this book. And from what we've read, I don't know, does anybody have anything to ask? Any question? Is there any question?
What era was the poem? Like, what era was it written in, or was it about?
The era was the medieval era. That era that broke, that mid-age era. I was like, oh, the middle age era from not the year now, but the time of, they call it, they don't call it the dark, some people call it the dark age, because that was when people started to like revolt against Rome, the Roman Empire. They were no longer going by what they how will I put it now? It says, I can't hear you.
Okay, can you please talk about the eras we have in this like the medieval, classical, and so on? Please, can you explain
Wow, wow, wow. I didn't even hear what you said. So I
She
don't
said,
know.
can you talk about the eras like medieval, classical, Renaissance era? Can you just like give a little listen on them?
Okay. So now that medieval era, we oh Jesus, my phone will soon go off. But anyways, anyway, with my 1%, if it goes off, I believe we have treated something. So now the medieval era, like I said, most people call it the dark age, in the sense that Rome was now um what do you call it? Uh, who raised his hand? So the medieval era is the middle age era or dark age. So now this era now talks about the fall of Rome and the rise of Christianity. So that classical time now where we have we call it barbarian worship in this Roman Empire, and then now the people were no longer cut out for that anymore. So it now brought about the rise of Christianity. So anybody now in this medieval era who rose to fight the king was who rose to fight the king or fight.
Right?
I think our phone has gone off.
It seems so.
Yeah, it
Like
seems
our
like a
phone is
phone has
it's like our phone is dead.
So does anyone have any does anyone know how to summarize what she was trying to explain so we could help ourselves here?
Yeah, I think you guys can talk about the team. Does anybody have the idea?
I'm coming. Let me
Probably if
check.
you have
Let me check something.
okay, no problem. So if you have probably a better understanding of what it is, or you probably have an idea about what these errors are, just try sharing it with the person here.
Okay, some of the teams, according to what I have here in the play, don't turn on my flashlight. Okay, some of the teams in the play are Temptation, Time, The Whale, Politics, Suffering. Um, let me just like say something on some of the teams that are here. Like the team of Temptation, they say the team of Temptation is closely related to the central theme of martyrdom. They say it has obvious religious significance, which is in line with what she said about medieval era because it has to do with the church. The church was very powerful in the medieval era that it's even like affected politics. The church had a very strong and powerful say. That explains maybe why they wanted Becket to maybe like join the rebels, or they wanted to remove him, eliminate him so that they can be able to, because the church was very powerful during that time, during the time of the medieval era. So um they say the first three temptations that assailed Thomas are easily overcome, for he is more or less beyond what they offer. But the fourth tempter reveals a temptation to which Thomas is in danger of succumbing. And as soon as Thomas becomes aware of it, it ceases to be a temptation and becomes an instrument for purgatorial suffering. So maybe I don't know if anyone has anything to say, they should correct me. We are all learning here. I feel that when the fourth tempter tempted him, it was a temptation, but the moment he noticed that yeah, it was a temptation, he just used it as a tool or an instrument, like to like he wanted to kill. He has accepted that he's going to die, so he just used it to justify the cause. That is what me I understand by this place I just read. He already had plans. He already knew that yes, it was going to happen. So the fourth temptation, he just used it as maybe a justification for what he was about to do. Another theme here is time. Time. They say the question of time runs through the entire play and informs the theology behind Thomas' recognition of his role as a martyr. He said time is presented as an earthly human concern in the play. Time leads human to think of events in terms of cause and effect, and to therefore make decision on the basis of efficiency and outcome. Don't really understand much here, but like time is an important theme in this play. It's like Thomas considered his decision to willingly submit himself as an instrument of God's will. They say it is a decision made outside of time. They say it was not made for its effect, and in fact cannot be understood by human. So no human can understand God. So Thomas, like his consciousness to submit himself as a matter, yeah, he justified it as God's will. But none of us can understand the will of God until it happens. That's what this place is trying to let us know. Um, there are many. Maybe we can go over. Let me just list some of the things. Maybe we can take them down and look at them on our old time. Temptation, because I haven't really gone through the work. I've not gone through the work yet. Just one of the things that temptation, time, the will, politics. Politics is also an important theme in the play. Then suffering, because throughout the work, the chorus, they were, talking about the death, suffering of Thomas, So responsibility is
Martyrdom too
also,
is
yeah,
Martyrdom too is there as the first team.
as the first team is martyrdom, yeah. First team is martyrdom. That's my contribution. So in case anyone has anything to add.
So please, Yanolua, can you help us shed more light on that team, that martyrdom?
So the team of martyrdom can be picked from, let me just say it started from the fourth tempter trying to tempt Thomas Becket. So it's in the textbook here that the fourth tempter entered and suggested the idea of martyrdom. You know that at first, even Thomas Becket, they all these guys, they came to him, they warned him that, oh, this the king is angry with you and wants to kill you. But even as a person, when someone comes to tell you something like that, the first thing that should come to your mind is, oh, let me run away, let me leave. But Thomas Becket still stayed and was like, that if he is to die, that means it's the will of God. Like, and when the fourth tempter came and tempted him and told him, the fourth tempter's words to him was that, so yes, he said that the fourth tempter entered and suggested the idea of martyrdom, which he notes that would give Thomas the greatest dominion over his enemies. He would be remembered throughout ages if he allowed himself to die for the church. So this was one of um the factors that contributed to Thomas. Even if some most people would say that, oh, he did not listen to this to this fourth tempter. But let me just say that it was actually at the back of his mind that, oh, if I should die, just like I should die like Jesus died for the world, I would be remembered for ages. And even these people that caused my death, if people remember them, they will be like, oh, this man did this to me, yeah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So that's what me I just feel like about the theme of martyrdom.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening.
Yes, I really want to talk about the theme of sacrifice. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we
Yeah,
can hear
this
you.
theme, yeah, this theme is quite related to that of martyrdom. But the fascinating thing about this idea is that it is conjures up the idea of bloodshed. I mean, a sacrifice is something that is offered for something. In this case, Becket offers his blood not for saving humankind, because that has been done by Christ already, but for that which he has come to believe with almost conviction. The sacrifice is therefore meant to convince other believers to hold on to the knowledge of the message as the pact of God to humankind. So I believe the theme of sacrifice is that is the sacrifice is so that the church should stand independently from control of the state. So I believe the theme of sacrifice is also part of the death of Thomas Becket.
So I also have a question. So, like, can we say Thomas Becket had pride, like it was his pride? Because most people, if I'm with my colleagues and we're talking about this stuff, they would be like, oh, he had pride at the initial stage of the play, but at the end, he changed his belief. And so I don't know if, because to me, I still feel like it was his pride that led to his downfall. And yeah, so if someone can just help me talk more about that.
Yes, you are right. There is the issue of pride here because he want to make name for himself and for the church. Like what the first speaker said, that if somebody want to kill you, you're supposed to run away. But just that I believe he's self-centered. He want to make name for himself. That's why he stand for death to come. They gave him opportunities, several opportunities to escape. For example, the issue of he was living in France for 7 years. Why must he come back to face the king when he knew very well that he's going to be killed? So, like what our lecturer said, foreshadow his death. He wants to die to make a name for himself. That's my own contribution.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I will like us to talk more about that pride of Thomas. Like, where, in what aspect does the pride? Because we talk about the theme of martyrdom, and then someone that died for the sake of, should I say, for the sake of the church, or for the sake of God, or should I say, protection of the church against government. I think such person is determined. we cannot say the person is proud, because I don't think someone should be proud when he or she is seeing death in his front. I think the person is determined to do something, not pride. So I would like someone to help us explain how we can call it pride.
Sorry to come in. When you talk about the history that led to the dispute between Thomas and the king, Thomas don't want to be corrupt. He want to abstain from corruption. Now they gave you an option that, look, since you don't want to be part of us, give room for other person to take your place so that the administration will go on. Thomas and the king appealed to Thomas that, look, Thomas, come, elect or anoint somebody in your place so that we can continue, if you don't want to be corrupt, so that we can continue in this corruption. But Thomas refused to anoint somebody in his place. He wants to stand there. Okay, give way for another person to be corrupt. He refused. That is why the king said, if you refuse to accept corrupt or being corrupt, okay, anoint somebody that can represent you for us. Because Thomas refused to appoint that somebody, the king said, okay, if that will be the case, we need to remove you or eliminate you from the scene so that we will have our way to rule. If you cannot beat them, definitely you join them. But Thomas said, no, I would rather die. You talk about dying for Christ. Okay, yes, there are some personal decisions you need to take for yourself. Maybe a decision of say, okay, you want to die for somebody. In what way? In what reason? So I think that of pride comes in, because if you don't want to be corrupt, let other person take your place, then let life goes on. I think that is my take.
I just noticed something now. Why viewing this work as a medieval work, we should also view it as a classical work. We should, because me, I feel that this work also be said to be a classical work, because if you go over like the features or characteristics of a classical work, you see that this work has almost all the features or characteristics of a classical work, like chorus, tragedy. There's tragedy in this work. This work makes use of chorus. There are moral themes, like there are themes we should learn. This work, it has a moral lesson that we can take something from. And it talks about religion. All these things are features of a classical work. So I feel why we are viewing it from the medieval perspective, if they should ask us a question concerning how it's a classical work, we should go and read on it so we can be able to, yes, make out one or two things and say this was a classical work. Because this work now, it brings out like a feeling of pity or fear. I don't know, one of the two. For like there's no way you read the work you will not feel pity for Thomas Becket, because he was killed. He did not die a natural death, he was killed. So we should just like, we should be able to say one or two things. If we are reading, we should also read it from the classical point of view.
Hello, can you hear me, Mr. Maxwell?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I don't pity Thomas. You know why? Because they told you to escape. You eventually escaped to France. After staying for 7 good years, you decide to come back. To do what now? They told you to stay there. Why coming back? He just want to die because he want to make name for himself. So that's why
No,
me, eh,
me, look at it this way. If he has escaped, the plot will not be developed. Do you get me? If he had escaped when the first tempter came and told him leave, and he left, That there is no need for the play now. The plot there it cannot develop. So him refusing to leave led to the development of the plot. I'm sure
No,
Elliot knew
he
that.
escaped. He stayed for France for 7 years. He eventually
Yes,
escaped. He stayed for France for 7 good years. Instead of staying in France, there's a way, it's a novel, somebody wrote it. There's a way the plot can still develop. I'm just trying to analyze character here. You get my point. I'm just trying to analyze character. He stayed for France for 7 good years. Then why did you choose to come back to face the king when you know that they are going to kill you? They plot your death. You escape. You stayed there for 7 good years. You came back to do what? Because that's why the team of we have the issue of a foreshadow here. He know that he is going to die. He want to die. So why must me? I don't
no.
pity Thomas because you know that.
If, if
Hello.
someone else has gone against the king, it does not hold water because if maybe say Thomas Becket was a very important person, then he was the I think Archbishop, if I'm not mistaken. So if maybe someone else like a guard or something like that went against the king, there's no significance of the play. But Thomas, the fact that Thomas went against it shows that yeah, Thomas is of a noble because you cannot carry somebody who is a farmer or a beggar and make him Archbishop. Thomas was of noble birth. So him going against the king made the play like more structured. You understand? So if he had, let me see, if another person has, maybe the play will not be as structured that is it. Maybe you while reading the play, you say which kind of nonsense is this one. Somebody, a nobody just come and be challenging the king. And let him die and actually he wants to challenge the king. That might have been your view if reverse was the case and it was not Thomas Becket that. So me, I feel that that is everything's point of view. Your point of view is that you do not pity him. You do not know why he did it. You don't know, maybe you heard when
I
the
don't even think
rebels,
so.
and if someone wants to rebel, there will be people that will fight against him. Who knows if maybe the rebels have been killing people, and Beckett maybe he felt he needed to step up and put an end to it. So let's not be one-sided, or
I even
let's
think
don't keep our mind. We should explore.
so. As for me, guys, can you hear me? So
Sure.
I don't think
Yeah, okay.
Thomas I don't think Thomas Becket, I mean, just came because he had pride or something like that. So it was actually go back to, you know because of reconciliation. He wanted reconciliation with the king. Now after 7 years of exile in France, Chegrap, so he was actually looking for a fragile peace with the king, with the Pope, Alexandra too. So do you guys remember what was it called? What actually led to him not listen to him not listen to the king? The king demanded that he should make him his son. Who can remember that part? Hello?
We are listening now. We are listening.
Should anoint
Yeah,
the
exactly.
the
He
the
anoints
next to
his son.
yes, yes.
So that aspect, I think Thomas Becket was not willing to disobey the Pope. So him coming back was not because he was proud or something like that. He only came back for reconciliation with the king, and then church was also desire to welcome him. Like he wanted to defend the church authority. Yeah. So because he was promising the restoration, like he just want to make everything normal as it was before. So him coming back to, was not because he was pride, he was having pride or something.
Hello, can you hear me?
We are still there.
Okay. One thing that's always add a salt to the play is the aspect of chorus. The chorus always give us a clue about what is about to happen. And the chorus, as part of the team, serve as one of the important tools or symbolize the future occurrence of what will happen to Thomas. Well, I believe that Thomas really want to make a name, like what uh, Olua or no, Olua something said, that he want to make a name for posterity, for future. That yes, I stood for the church and I stood for a positive reason. So I think the chorus also contributes to, like what Maxwell said, like to the plot development, and it makes the novel, the drama very, very interesting. I think the book is very, very interesting, honestly. It's like a historical book.
Yes, I think we've talked about that, yeah. So can anyone talk about, the symbolism, some, I mean, things we have to know about concerning the book, yeah? Who have something to say about symbolism, please, guys?
You cannot say symbol if you want symbolism of what exactly? Symbolism of the chorus, symbolism of the tempters. What exactly? Because if you want to talk about symbolism, there are many things that you can attach symbolism to in the work. So specify.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, when you talk about symbolism, like the ark picture symbolizes Christ as his sacrifice. Then What you still need to also consider is the temptation of the picture. That also symbolize the temptation of Christ. Then you talk about the tempters. The tempters symbolize the devil, the Satan himself. They are the real devil. Then you talk about the priests. The priests symbolize Christ's disciples. The priests, that is the priests under Thomas, they symbolize Christ's disciples. Then you talk about the four knights. The four knights symbolize the Roman soldiers who sacrificed Jesus Christ. And by the extension, the Jews. I'm talking about the four knights. Then you talk about the king. The king symbolizes the Jewish leadership. There is a Prince Caiaphas or something like that, or the political leadership of the world. I'm talking about the king. Then you talk about the cathedral. The cathedral symbolizes Golgotha. You know, Golgotha is a place where Jesus was actually killed. Then you talk about the chorus. The chorus symbolizes the women after Christ's death. That is the women after Christ's death. When you talk about elegy, the cry after the death of the picture, I think you can see that in page 82 to 83 in the head. Then you talk about the blood. The blood symbolizes sacrifice, martyrdom. Talk about the blood. Then you still talk about the messenger. The messenger symbolizes the type of, I mean, it's just like John the Baptist when he foretold about the birth of Jesus Christ. I think there are so many other symbols or symbolisms in the play, but I think these ones, these are the ones I can actually remember.
So, all right, sir. Thank you very so much, sir. I think we should just end for today. So, continue the next day. All right. Good night, everybody.
Have a nice night.
Yeah, good night.